Okay, let's talk about something that happens to, well, pretty much all of us. That feeling, that uniquely awkward moment when you meet someone new, you shake their hand, and then seconds later, their name is just gone. It's so frustrating, right? Well, today, we're gonna get into the real reason why this happens, and I promise you, it's not what you think. So you know the drill. You're at a party, a networking thing, whatever. Someone walks up, hand out, big smile, and they introduce themselves. You're right there with them, you're smiling back, it all feels totally normal. But then, poof. It's like the name just evaporated into thin air. It was there 1 second, and the next, just a complete and total blank space in your brain where that name should be. And that's when it starts, right? That little internal wave of panic. You spend the entire rest of the conversation just trying to navigate a minefield, doing everything you can to avoid having to actually say their name out loud. It's this tiny, stressful, internal crisis. So where does your mind go? Straight to self-criticism. We tell ourselves we must be awful people. We didn't care enough to listen. We're selfish. We just have a terrible memory. We're told remembering names is a sign of respect, so forgetting must mean we're just plain disrespectful. But here is the absolute key, the big takeaway. This has almost nothing to do with your memory or your character. It is not a sign of arrogance. It's actually a very real psychological and, biological response that's often tied to social anxiety. So let's break this down. First up, we need to understand what we're calling the 3-second amnesia. This is what your brain is actually up to in that moment of introduction. You know, psychologists actually have a name for this, which is pretty cool. It's called the next in line effect. And what it means is that when you're in a situation where you feel like you have to perform even just a little bit, your brain basically switches its priorities. It stops focusing on receiving information and starts focusing on managing your own social performance. So here's the disconnect. You think you're being a good listener, that you're totally present and absorbing what they're saying. But your brain is in full-on performance mode. It's not trying to store their name, it's running a non-stop background check on how you're coming across. And this right here, this is fascinating. Just look at where your mental energy is really going. A huge chunk is dedicated to, am I smiling right? What am I going to say next? Was my handshake weird? And then you see it. That tiny, tiny little sliver left over for actually recording their name. So you see, you didn't forget their name. Your brain literally never even saved it. But why? Why does our brain do this to us? Well, that brings us to our next section, a microscopic threat. We're about to look at the deep down biological reason for all this performance anxiety. Now, this might sound a little dramatic, but for a lot of us, especially if you're an introvert or you tend to overthink things, meeting a new person isn't just a casual chat. On a very deep subconscious level, your nervous system can actually register it as a potential threat. You're stepping into an unknown social situation. And here's the biological play-by-play. The introduction kicks off this subtle fight-or-flight response. That releases the stress hormone cortisol into your system. And when your brain thinks it's in some kind of survival situation, what's one of the first things it shuts down? Non-essential functions, like encoding a new name into your short-term memory. And from an evolutionary standpoint, that makes perfect sense, right? If your ancient brain is trying to figure out if this stranger is a friend or foe, is this situation safe or dangerous, knowing their name is completely useless data. It's busy scanning their tone of voice, the body language, their intentions, not their name. Okay, now this is where things get really, really interesting. And honestly, it might just change the way you see this whole thing, and maybe even yourself. This phenomenon leads to something we can call the empath's paradox. This is the beautifully cruel irony of it all. Forgetting a name isn't a sign that you don't care. In fact, it's often a sign that you care a lot. And this is especially true for people who are highly empathetic. Think about it. If you're an empathetic person, you're so busy tuning into the other person's feelings. You're trying to read their energy, you want to make them feel comfortable and heard, you're listening to their stories. You're so focused on all that rich emotional data that the simple logistical data, their name, it just slips right through the cracks. You'll remember how they made you feel, but not what they're called. So knowing all of this, the most important thing is to stop treating this like some kind of character flaw. So what can we actually do about it? Well, that brings us to our last section, how to rewire the panic and basically take your brain out of survival mode. All right, here are a few simple things. First, just stop trying to perform. Give yourself permission to not be perfectly smooth. The second you hear their name, say it back to them out loud. David, so nice to meet you. That forces your brain to actually process it. But really, the most important thing is this. If you forget, just drop the shame. It's okay. It's not a moral failing. Just smile, be a human, and ask again. People almost never mind. And really, this is what it all comes down to. In that moment of forgetting, you've got a choice. You can panic and feel ashamed, or you can see it as a tiny opportunity for a real connection. Admitting you forgot a name isn't a failure. It's just a small moment of vulnerability. And honestly, in a world that's so obsessed with being perfect, that little bit of honesty is so much more memorable and charming than getting it right every single time.